Right now, stretched between two poles at the edge of my vegetable garden here in Okinawa, there is a bed sheet, the very same white cotton sheet that covered my bed for perhaps 15 years before its center finally wore thin as paper. It is not on any bed tonight. It is standing guard over a young row of eggplant and pepper seedlings, catching the harsh midday sun and softening it to a gentle shade, while the breeze passes clean through the weave and keeps the leaves beneath it from ever growing damp and diseased. My wife retired that sheet to the mending basket 2 years ago, certain its days were done. It has, since then, done more honest work in my garden than it ever did in our bedroom. Before this video ends, I am going to give you 9 different uses for the worn bed sheets sitting folded at the back of your linen closet right now. Each one real, each one tested on this small homestead, and every one of them costing you nothing but a pair of scissors and an afternoon. My name is Kenji Takara. I am 81 years old, and I have lived my whole life on the island of Okinawa in the far south of Japan. In the home I was raised in, cloth of any kind, woven with real labor, from real cotton, grown in a real field, was never spoken of as just a sheet or just a rag. My grandmother sorted worn household linens the way another woman might sort jewelry. This one, still strong enough for the table. This one, better suited now for the garden. This one, soft enough at last for a baby's use, or for polishing the good copper pot. Nothing left her hands as rubbish, while a single honest thread remained in it. This is the same philosophy behind the tool aprons and the citrus peels and the fence posts I have shown you before. Matenai, the refusal to waste, applied now to the plain white cotton sleeping on your bed tonight, which has far more life left in it than the mattress store would ever want you to believe. Walk into the garden center and look at what they sell beside the vegetable seedlings each spring. Rolls of frost cloth and garden fabric, $10, $15, $20 a roll, promising to protect your tender plants from a cold night or a hungry bird. Hold that fabric in your hand and look closely at it, and then go home and hold an old cotton sheet beside it. You will very often find they are nearly the same weight, the same weave, the same simple purpose. Cloth thin enough to let light and air pass, thick enough to soften a chill or turn away a beak. The garden industry did not invent frost cloth. They simply discovered that people would pay handsomely for fabric with a picture of a tomato on the packaging, while the very same fabric, already paid for, already worn soft with years of washing, sat folded uselessly in 100 million linen closets. There is no profit in telling a customer that the roll on the shelf and the sheet in their cupboard are cousins. So the garden centers never will. I will. Now here is where almost everyone goes wrong when they try to give old bed linens a second life on the homestead. And if you skip this understanding, your projects will mildew, tear along the first strong wind, or simply fall apart within a season. And you will conclude that old sheets are only fit for rags after all. The single mistake is treating every worn sheet as though it were still whole cloth, when in truth, an old sheet is rarely worn evenly. The center, where a body has slept and turned for years, is almost always thinnest, sometimes worn to the point of near transparency, while the outer edges, the hems, and the corners, which bore far less friction over the years, often remain nearly as strong as the day the sheet was bought. Cut a sheet blindly, without first testing its strength across its whole surface, and you will build a scarecrow's shirt from the very center panel that tears in the first breeze, while throwing away perfectly sound edge fabric that could have anchored a much sturdier project. The old households never made this mistake because they were taught to read cloth the way a carpenter reads a plank of wood, for its grain, its weak points, and its strength, before a single cut was ever made. Hold the sheet up to a bright window or the open sky and look through it section by section, where light passes through easily and you can see your fingers clearly on the far side. That fabric is thin and tired, still useful, but only for the gentlest of jobs. Where the weave still shows dents and the light struggles to pass, that fabric has real strength left in it, and it is that fabric, usually found at the hems, the corners, and the outer thirds of the sheet, that you will reserve for anything that must bear weight, resist tearing, or stand up to weather. A simple tug test confirms it. Grip a worn patch in both hands and pull firmly across the grain. Sound cloth resists strongly, tired cloth gives with a soft, telling stretch. Once you know your sheet this way, strong at the edges, weak in the heart, you are ready to put each part to its rightful use, and nothing you build from it will surprise you by failing early. Use 1. The shade cloth for young seedlings. This is the use I opened with, and it is the simplest of all 9. A worn sheet, even a very thin one, for this job wants light to pass, not to be blocked entirely. Stretched between 2 stakes or draped loosely over a hoop frame like the ones I taught you to build from scrap pipe, shelters young transplants from harsh afternoon sun during their first tender week in the ground, cutting the sun's strength by perhaps 1/3 or half, while still letting the plants breathe and grow. Even the thinnest, most worn-through center panel serves beautifully here, for its very weakness. The loose, open weave is exactly what filters light so gently. Use 2. Floating row cover against frost and pests. Laid directly over a bed of low crops, lettuce, greens, young brassicas, and weighted at the edges with stones or soil, a sheet traps a small blanket of warmer air close to the plants on a cold night, often enough to turn a light frost from a disaster into a non-event, while its fine weave keeps cabbage moths and other flying pests from ever reaching the leaves to lay their eggs. Use your stronger edge fabric here if the bed is in an exposed, windy spot. The thinner center panel serves well enough in a sheltered corner. Use 3. The garden kneeling and harvest cloth. A folded double or triple layer of sheet laid on the ground beside a bed gives aging knees a soft place to kneel that a bare towel cannot match for size, and the same cloth spread flat becomes the finest harvest catch-all there is. Shake a bean vine, a berry bush, or a bundle of herbs over it, and gather every dropped leaf and pod in one corner with a single motion, instead of bending 40 times to the bare earth. My own knees are grateful for this one nearly every morning of the growing season. Use 4. The paint and workshop drop cloth. The strong outer sections of an old sheet, sewn or simply overlapped to size, make a perfectly serviceable drop cloth for painting a fence, staining a bench, or catching sawdust beneath the workbench. Utterly free, where a store-bought canvas drop cloth runs $15 to $25. When it grows too stained for that work, it descends honestly to the rag bag, having given a full career first. Use 5. The produce and onion storage bags. Strong edge fabric, cut into rectangles and sewn up 2 sides into simple open bags, a task of 10 minutes even for a hand new to a needle, becomes breathable storage for onions, garlic, and potatoes, letting air circulate around the harvest in a way that sealed plastic never allows, which is precisely why root vegetables sprout and rot faster in plastic than in cloth. Hang these bags in a cool, dark corner of the shed, and your harvest keeps weeks longer than it would sealed away from the air. Use 6 cleaning and polishing rags, sorted by purpose. This is the most obvious use and also the one most often done poorly. Most people cut a sheet into rags all the same and use the finest cloth to wipe up motor oil while a coarse job gets the soft piece meant for glass. Instead, sort as you cut the thinnest, softest, most worn fabric, often from the very center, set aside for polishing glass, mirrors, and fine surfaces, where a soft weave leaves no streak or scratch. The sturdier edge and hem fabric kept for the workshop, for wiping tools, mopping spills, and the rougher jobs that would shred a delicate rag in a single use. A basket of rags sorted this way serves you for years, where an unsorted heap is quietly used up and discarded within months. Use 7, the strainer cloth for the kitchen. A clean square of tightly woven sheet, boiled first to be certain it is spotless, makes an excellent strainer for cheese making, for clarifying broth, or for straining the pulp from homemade juice. Precisely the job that cheesecloth is sold to do at the market, at several dollars for a small package, when the very same weave has likely been sleeping on your bed for a decade. My grandmother strained her tofu through cloth just like this her entire life, and never once bought a purpose-made cheesecloth from a shop. Use 8, the emergency bandage and first aid cloth. Clean boiled cotton sheet, torn into strips, has served as bandaging material for as long as cloth and wounds have coexisted, and a homestead prepared for the unexpected does well to keep a folded, boiled section of old sheet set aside in the first aid kit for exactly this purpose, clean, absorbent, and free, where a roll of gauze from the pharmacy costs several dollars and is easily used up. I do not offer this as medical instruction beyond the simple wrapping of a minor cut or scrape. For anything more serious, always seek a doctor's care. But for the small daily scrapes of homestead life, a clean cloth strip has served every generation before the pharmacy ever existed. Use 9. The bundle wrap. Long before paper gift bags, the oldest use of sacks existed, I have saved the people of my country wrapped and carried nearly everything in a simple square of cloth, and it is entirely with a few practiced folds and Japanese. A tradition called furoshiki, a square cut from an old sheet, roughly a yard across, becomes a wrapping cloth for carrying vegetables from the garden, bundling a gift, protecting tools on a journey to a neighbor's, or simply carrying your lunch to the fields, the way farmers did for 1,000 years before there was such a thing as a paper bag. There are dozens of traditional folds and knots, but the simplest could not be easier. Lay your item in the center of the cloth, bring 2 opposite corners up and knot them over the top, then the remaining 2 corners up and knot them again, and you have a secure, reusable carrying bundle that will never tear the way a paper bag does in the rain, and never fill a landfill the way a plastic one does. Now, the extra layers, the small things that separate someone who cuts up an old sheet from someone who truly makes the most of one. First, wash before you cut, always. Even a sheet that looks clean carries body oils and residues from years of use that can affect how new stitching or dye takes hold, and a hot wash beforehand also reveals, honestly, exactly how thin the fabric has become in its worn sections. Cloth often looks deceptively sound when dry and dusty, and shows its true weakness only once thoroughly wet and dried again. Second, hem or bind any raw cut edge that will see real use. An unfinished cut edge on cotton sheeting will fray steadily with every wash and every wind, shedding threads and shortening its useful life. A simple fold and stitch hem, even a rough one done by an unpracticed hand, or a line of zigzag stitching on a machine if you own one, arrests that fraying entirely and can double the working life of anything you make from this cloth. Third, match the weight of the fabric to the honesty of the job. I have said this already in different words, but it deserves saying once more plainly. Do not ask thin, tired center cloth to do a strong edges work, and do not waste your strongest because it is where these nine uses that a worn scrap would serve. Beneath her sewing table stood a wise Homestead wastes nothing, and inside it, sorted not with the material more care than most not people its own give their good judgment about lay which every worn sheet, shirt, and length of cloth that had ever left active service in our house, sorted, as I taught you today, by strength and by softness, waiting patiently for its next assignment. I remember, as a boy of perhaps 10, watching her cut into a sheet I recognized from my own bed and asking her, with the wounded confusion only a child can summon, whether she was destroying something of mine. She sat back on her heels, held up the two halves she had just cut, one thin as mist, one still strong and sound, and said, "Nothing of yours is destroyed, Kenji. It has only changed its work. This piece will shade the tomatoes. This piece will wrap your lunch to the fields next week. You slept under this cloth for 10 years. Now it will feed you for 10 more. I did not fully understand her that day. I understand her completely now, an old man myself, standing beside a garden shaded by the very sheet I once slept beneath. And that is the larger truth beneath these 9 small uses. We have been trained by the modern world to see a worn bedsheet as finished, soft, thin, sentimental perhaps, but essentially over, its only honest destination, the rag bag or the bin. But cloth, real cloth, woven from real cotton and worn soft by years of honest use, is never truly finished. It has only completed one assignment and stands ready, if we are wise enough to see it, for the next. To cut that sheet thoughtfully, reading its strength, honoring its weakness, sending each piece to the work it is still fit for, is not a small domestic economy, though the money saved on frost cloth and cheesecloth and drop cloths and bandages is real and adds up steadily across a year. It is a way of refusing to let good material die an early, unnecessary death simply because we have forgotten how to look at it properly. That is matanai, entire and complete, waste nothing, not the cotton, not the money, not the years of softness and strength still folded into an old sheet's weave, and not your own 2 hands, which know far more about giving a tired thing new work than the store has ever wanted you to believe. So tell me, in the comments below, where in this world do you live, and what worn linens are folded at the back of your closet right now, waiting for someone to notice they are not finished yet? Old sheets, worn towels, a tablecloth gone thin at the fold? Tell me your place and your cloth, because I read every message that comes to me, and I would dearly love to know which of these 9 uses you try first, and what your garden or your kitchen looks like with an old sheet finally put back to honest work. And the next time we sit together, I will show you what my grandmother did with the very last, most worn scraps of cloth left over, even after all